Competitive Pokemon can be a bizarre experience sometimes, especially in the world of competitive singles. Some of the things that can break the game in competitive are just not what you would expect. They don't make logical sense, or in many cases are a bit silly. Let's take a look at some comedic examples of banned strategies in competitive Pokemon. Did you know that in Generation 1 and 2, it is possible to play a multiplayer battle with a Pokemon that is not fully healed? Maybe they've taken some damage, or used a few of their moves, or they have a status ailment on them. This was changed in later games, but in Gen 1 and 2 this is possible, so why even bring this up? Why would you want to be damaged or statused before a battle? Well, having a status ailment on yourself before a battle can actually be advantageous for you, interestingly, especially in Generation 1. If you have a status ailment on yourself, like poison, another status ailment can no longer be applied to you. You can only have one status ailment on your Pokemon at a time. So in Gen 1, there is actually a whole metagame around getting paralyzed on the right thing so that it can't be put to sleep or frozen. Gen 1 has extremely limited counterplay to status. There are no abilities that prevent status. And it's a little bit lame, but one of the best strategies in Gen 1 is fishing for freezes. Because freeze, even though it has a low chance of occurring, only 10% on Ice Beam, freeze is permanent in Gen 1. You cannot thaw out of a freeze. There's no chance every turn to thaw out. So if you freeze something, you have basically KO'd them completely. They can't do anything. For this reason, it's actually really strong to start the game off with your Chansey or Snorlax already having a status ailment on them, like poison or paralysis, because that means they are completely immune to all other status ailments. This would not only be useful on a Pokemon like Chansey that is prone to getting frozen over time by Ice Beam spam, could also be useful on a Pokemon like Alakazam. If an Alakazam is poisoned, you can just switch it in on Sleep Powder and be immune. So it would be theoretically optimal to go into the wild and get poisoned by a Caterpie or something, clicking Poison Sting, and then battle the enemy. Imagine the shock and horror on the level 2 Weedle's face as each level 100 Pokemon is being switched in repeatedly to get their dose of the Poison Sting, so that they are ready for combat. What an absurd visual. In the Generation 1 and 2 OU metagames, there is a Cleric clause that requires all of your Pokemon to be fully healed with maximum PP on all their moves, and no status ailments on them, to prevent a world where all 6 of your own Pokemon and your opponent's Pokemon have self-inflicted poison on them before the battle even starts, and neither of them can apply any status to each other, creating a strange stalemate situation. King's Rock is a held item that doesn't sound too exciting on the surface. What King's Rock does is it grants all of your attacks a 10% flinch chance. Flinch prevents the target from being able to act completely. That could be really good if you happen to get that 10% chance, but it's a very low chance of occurring, isn't it? And this is going to be way worse than most other items on average that provide more consistent advantages, like leftovers, or a choice item, or whatever. But the King's Rock had a really broken application that made it a bit of a problem. You may be familiar with the Pokemon Cloyster, a well-known Pokemon for its infamous game-ending Shell Smash set in the Gen 5 metagame. In most games, this is a fine Pokemon though. An explosive sweeper with its combination of Shell Smash and Skill Link, but manageable. Shell Smash is a powerful boost, rapidly raising many of your stats at the cost of some small defensive debuffs, and Skill Link is an outstanding ability, granting all of your multi-hit attacks with their maximum proc chance every single time. So Icicle Spear is a multi-hit move that lands 2 to 5 times randomly, but with Skill Link it will always land 5 times, which massively increases your damage output. But what players discovered was that if you hold a King's Rock on Cloyster, this flinch chance applies to every single individual hit of an attack. And on a Pokemon that always hits its multi-hit attacks 5 times, that is broken, because every single hit of Icicle Spear has an individual 10% chance to flinch. That means that Icicle Spear, in essence, has a 41% chance to flinch if you have a King's Rock equipped. Now that is unbelievable. Even moves like Iron Head and Rock Slide do not have such high flinch chances. And this was just stupid. I mean, Cloyster is a crazy threat to begin with that can power through unprepared teams, but imagine every single time you get hit by its strongest stab move after a Shell Smash boost, it also has a 41% chance to just not let you play the game. For this reason, King's Rock is a banned item in many generations. It's banned in Gens 5, 8, and 9. But I found out just now that for whatever reason, King's Rock is not banned in Generations 6 and 7, and I actually don't know why, because it works the same, and it does the exact same thing in those generations. There's nothing different about them. So maybe they just forgot? I'm not sure. If you want to use this, I guess you can in the Gen 6 and 7 OU ladder. If you want to be a despicable individual, you can go ahead, but in many generations, this uncompetitive strategy is disallowed. There is a competitive Pokemon format called Little Cup, a world where baby Pokemon have a place to exist competitively. The maximum level here is 5, and you can only use the first stage of a Pokemon's evolution line. It's a really fun and fast-paced format where a lot of different things are viable. Since everything has such low HP, sometimes only 20 HP maximum, items like the berry juice are top tier, because berry juice heals a flat amount of HP. And on the other side of the coin, there are attacks that deal a set amount of damage in Pokemon. The attack Sonic Boom is not one that you would probably ever think to use. It's pretty bad. This is an attack that deals a flat 20 damage to the enemy. But in the world of Little Cup, this is one of the most broken moves in the entire game. Everything here has incredibly low HP, so 20 can one-shot a lot of Pokemon straight up. And if it's not one-shotting them, it's dealing the vast majority of their HP bar in damage. I mean, imagine if in regular competitive there was a move that just dealt 300 damage or something absurd like that. Down in the world of Little Cup, that's exactly what Sonic Boom is like. The move Dragon Rage is even stronger, because this deals a flat 40 HP of damage to the enemy. The majority of Pokemon in this format have way less than 40 HP, so this just one-hit KOs most things. Sonic Boom and Dragon Rage are both banned from being used from Little Cup, which makes a lot of sense. The clear intent of Little Cup is that the Pokemon are supposed to be small and weak, evenly matched children, like Mankey and Mienfoo and Machop. But sometimes the parameters of Little Cup will let in a humorously large Pokemon relative to everything else. Onix, for example, is a Little Cup Pokemon. This is a very large serpentine rock creature, but it fits with the parameters of Little Cup. It is the first stage of its evolution line, and is therefore legal to use in Little Cup. And it's not even the best Pokemon here, despite its significant size advantage. It's a little bit embarrassing if you ask me. Sometimes the parameters of Little Cup let things in that should not be there though, things that are too powerful. One of the earliest examples of this was Scyther, a Pokemon that gained a new evolution in a later game. Scyther was released in Gen 1 as a fully evolved Pokemon, and then in Gen 2, it received the new evolution of Scizor. Scyther is the first stage in its evolution line and therefore counts as a Little Cup legal Pokemon, but this does not have the stats of a baby Pokemon. It was not initially designed as a baby Pokemon. It has 110 attack, a high speed, and even the strong ability Technician. It's also more medium-sized. It's not a very small Pokemon. So in this event, they did ban Scyther. Scyther is a banned Pokemon from Little Cup. It is too powerful. There have been some more recent examples of this too. In Generation 9, Girafarig finally received a new evolution, the new Farigiraf. So Girafarig finally became a Little Cup legal Pokemon, after many years of being a fully evolved Pokemon and not being eligible. The stats on this one are not actually that outrageous, but for Little Cup it is above average, with 90 special attack and pretty well-rounded stats everywhere compared to everything else in Little Cup. So it did end up getting banned. The same exact thing happened with Stantler, who is now the first stage in its evolution line, since receiving the new evolution of Weirdeer. A bit too powerful for Little Cup though, so it got banned too. But by far the most humorous example of this in Generation 9 was with Duraludon. Duraludon was released in just the last generation, Gen 8, as a pretty powerful single-stage evolution. This is an impressive Pokemon, with a great Steel Dragon typing, a high defense stat, good special attack of 120. Competitively it was not the best, but fundamentally not a terrible Pokemon. Someone that would serve you well in a playthrough, and definitely a cut above Mankey. But for a brief period in Generation 9, Duraludon was legal in Little Cup because its new evolution, Archaludon, hit the scene. Duraludon is now within the requirements of being a little cup legal Pokemon, despite literally being a 1.8 meter tall building-themed Pokemon towering over the competition. The size disparity here is unbelievable. When you compare the stat distribution of Duraludon to top-tier threat Stunky, I think that there is a clear and noticeable difference between the two. And Duraludon falling in this tier via technicality was a little bit absurd. This is clearly far too powerful for Little Cup, and it was banned unsurprisingly. But I think the fact that this right here was a Little Cup legal Pokemon briefly is rather humorous, isn't it? Finally, I'd like to talk about what is probably my least favorite ability design in the whole series. An absurd ability that is quite comedic in how it turns the most unassuming Pokemon into absolute monsters, but much to the dismay of anyone on the receiving end. The ability Moody is one that raises a random stat by 2 and lowers another stat by 1 at the end of each turn. So you gain 2 in one stat, lose 1 in another stat. And it's completely random which stat you gain. You could get special attack, defense, or you could get evasion. So what you could do if you have Moody is just click protect and substitute repeatedly, fishing for advantageous boosts, ideally evasion so that you can dodge incoming hits and become unkillable. You're gaining more stats than you're losing, even if it is completely random as well. So on average, just stalling turns is going to be positive for you, and you don't have to put yourself at risk actually clicking a boosting move because you're just sitting there gaining stats forever. So a Pokemon could just stall with this, accrue boosts like a maniac. If you're lucky early and get the good ones, there's nothing the enemy can really do except hope to hit through them. It doesn't even really matter what the Pokemon is that gets this. As long as they have the capacity to stall turns with Protect and Sub, they're a problem. And the pool of Pokemon that get this ability are not particularly outstanding ones. You have Glalie who can get it. I mean, look at Glalie. An Ice type with 80 stats across the board. This is a nothing Pokemon. But with Moody, Glalie becomes somebody. We've got Octillery, Bibarel, even Bidoof, the baby form of Bibarel, gets Moody, and even Bidoof can just protect and sub and possibly get evasion and possibly become an unkillable demon. Now, to their credit, in Generation 8, they did nerf Moody, and they made it so Moody can no longer boost evasion or accuracy, evasion being the key one. Because randomly getting evasion boost is crazy. There's just a chance that you never die. It's ridiculous. But even still, the randomness of Moody, the fact that you can accrue boosts passively with a higher chance for these boosts to be positive for you over time, was still broken. This was still broke and still uninteractive and just not something people wanted in the game, myself included. So Moody got banned in Gen 8 and 9 as well. Despite the nerf, the inherent randomness and uninteractivity of this was still a little bit much. And what's funny is that even in the format Balanced Hackmons, Moody was a huge problem. If you don't know what Balanced Hackmons is, this is a world where you can use hacked Pokemon. So you can change a Pokemon's ability to almost anything you want, and give them any moves that are in the game. It's a format with near infinite team building possibilities. Balanced Hackmons is the more reined-in version of playing hacked Pokemon though. There are some rules. Abilities like Wonder Guard and Huge Power that are really broken are not allowed. And for a time in Gen 9 Balanced Hackmons, Moody was legal to use. And here's a team I found that was before Moody got banned in Balanced Hackmons. Look at this team. It was built by the player Akira153. We have Zacian Crowned with Moody, Arceus Ghost with Moody, Groudon with Moody, and Mewtwo with Moody. We got Moody spam. You can put Moody on these Pokemon. I mean, Moody was a problem on Bidoof. So you can imagine on Zacian Crowned, we have achieved another paradigm. And Zacian Crowned that can learn Spiky Shield, which is a protection move that also damages the enemy. Now we're in insane territory. So the game plan here is, of course, just to stall, get the most positive Moody boosts you can, and then sweep, I suppose. We've got Spiky Shield on all of these Moody users, substitute, and stored power on the Mewtwo is crazy because you're, of course, accruing all these boosts, and stored power is going to deal 1,000,000 damage to everything. I mean, I don't know. Some people get upset when these random effects like Moody get banned, but I don't know about you. I don't want to play in a casino where I'm just playing against somebody fishing for a good boost outcome. You know, the Zacian Crown gets +2 attack on the first turn. Thanks for playing. Thank you for playing. It's over already. And the odds are in your favor as well with Moody, because you can continuously stall turns, you got 4 Pokemon with the damn ability, it's crazy work. So these teams were terrorizing Gen 9 balanced Hackmons, and something had to be done. And this is a format where they try to be more lenient about these things. It's all about being broken. That's the whole point of Hackmons, but this was not in the spirit of competition, so it was deleted. And there you have it, folks. I thought I'd talk about some banned strategies in various formats that I haven't talked about in other videos. Don't want to retread old ground, but I have various videos about interesting bans that have happened in competitive Pokemon, including one about Hackmons specifically. It's funny all the different ways that competitive singles can be broken or turned into a complete gamble fest. And whenever a new generation comes out, we're always just waiting for some new crazy thing to break the game. What do you think they'll release in Gen 10? That might have a similar effect. In Gen 9 we saw Shed Tail, Last Respect. Perhaps in the next game we'll see a move that sets every hazard on the field at once, baton passes you out, and has a 30% chance to delete the enemy's save file. What do you think, folks? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you for watching.